Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we're going to start with the roll call.
Ms. Bex,
I'm here.
Ms. Harrell,
Here.
Ms. Hetland is excused, Mr. Jacobson, Ms. Jones is excused, Ms. Orcherton,
Hello.
Ms. Hammond,
Here?
Ms. Snyder,
Here.
Mr. Robinson will be late.
Okay. Next thing would be approval of minutes of the previous, can we do that? We don't have a quorum. Can we approve the meeting? Oh, do we have a quorum? Okay. All right, next is approval of minutes of the previous meeting. I think I had just one minor correction, which was a comma that was in the wrong place. Celeste Choate's name has a comma in the middle. That's under the her presentation. So, anybody else have any questions or comments?
I was at the meeting last time, but I didn't see my name on the list. Thank you.
Okay. I move that we approve the minutes as they are. Can anybody second that?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. I guess our agenda has changed quite a bit. We were going to have a number of grant presentations, but all those people couldn't make it. So we will be striking that from the agenda today. Next, we have the staff report.
Okay, everyone, here's your February staff report. I'll slide this a little closer to me. I'm going to be talking about the following programs: our arts grants, Arts in the Schools, Art in the Square, our Art Now mini documentary series, Artists of the Quarter exhibitions, the Urbana Sculpture Project, Open Scene, Open Mic, Young Artist Studio, and our Downtown Events series. First and foremost, of course, biggest thing that's on our minds this week is that our grants are due by Friday. And true to history, we will probably likely be extending that deadline till Monday morning. So anyone listening, be sure to get your grants in. We have, had adjusted the program a little bit to accommodate the different categories. So just to reiterate that for anyone who may be listening at home, we now have Tier 1, 2, and 3 grants, small, mid-size, and larger grants, in the amounts of $500 to $1,500 grants for small, $2,000 to $4,500 for Tier 2 grants, and Tier 3, $5,000 to $10,000 grants, intended for small, mid-size, and large-scale initiatives. We also maintain our Arts in the Schools grants, which is truly largely a grant award, with a grantee that's selected for that one in honor of arts education programs in the Urbana School District 116 and a brand new Poet Laureate program. All of the grants have carried with them every year a little bit of a opportunity for folks to learn more about the grant process. So this year we offered 8 different workshops and speaking engagements that spoke about the grant program and spoke about opportunities. And then every event that our staff have been at, we've been making comments about the grant program, inclusive of a few of our events this past week and weekend. I want to just mention that grant workshops were offered at a number of places, including Parkland College Garrett's Gallery, the Urbana-Champaign Independent Media Center, Common Ground Food Co-op, Salt and Light, the Urbana Free Library, and the School of Art and Design at the University of Illinois. Information was also given at the annual Grantathon at the University of Illinois. And drop-in grant hours for the first time were offered as a day-long opportunity for people to come by. So a number of folks took advantage of that opportunity as well to just come by and ask questions, bring the grant as a draft of it, and get some feedback. We continue Open Scene, Open Mic, which is our ongoing open mic series in downtown Urbana and the city of Urbana that aims to center the voices of artists of color and draw in a wide array of participants in downtown Urbana. It welcomes, of course, music, spoken word, storytelling, comedy, beat making, and the list goes on. We very recently had a sort of special event. This was in addition to the traditional open mics. We had our first showcase where the artists are pre-planned and it's not open. You don't sign up at the event. And that was in honor of Black History Month. We actually did a Black Herstory Slam. And featured all Black women poets and spoken word artists that evening as part of Urbana First Friday's Love for All Poetry Crawl, which is traditionally their February First Fridays initiative. Thank you for those that came out. It was really a fantastic event. We estimated a crowd of around 200 people came out to that event, and it was really well connected with the rest of the Love for All Poetry Crawl events in the downtown. So we had, for instance, poetry that was printed through First Fridays and distributed almost as little cards on the chairs. We also partook in something that was a visual display of poetry that was in and around the downtown. The Independent Media Center was a site of some of that poetry as well. And it was hosted by storyteller Don Blackman. It was really a fantastic evening. These are just some pictures of some of the performers. In the picture on the left, you can see Don Blackman in the center, our host. And then this is not all the performers. This picture was taken at the end after some had to leave. But it does include, I believe, two of our youngest performers who were a high school freshman and a high school sophomore who performed and really wanted to showcase that, we had a lot of teenagers show out for this one too, which was really exciting for us. Our next one is tomorrow, and it's at 25 o'clock Brewing Company. And in honor of Valentine's Day, we're calling it the Love Edition. So you can bring all of your poetry and prose and music that has to do with love or heartache.
Where is 25 o'clock Brewing?
Yeah, 25 o'clock Brewing Company is a rather opened their tap room rather recently, but has been open for patio events and other things. So we actually had an open scene on their patio this past summer, but it's on the corner of Race and Griggs Street in downtown Urbana, very adjacent to the Boneyard Creek crossing. But yeah, it's a brand new brewing company, and it's a microbrewery. So there's it's an opportunity for folks to come out all ages. I want to mention that our current Art Now features Mark Anthony Macon. And just to say a little bit about Mark, he's a visual artist who describes himself as a neo-Dadaist and an artist of impulse. He had a great interview on here and was also one of our featured artists recently for Young Artist Studio. But if you haven't checked out that episode, it airs, of course, on Urbana Public Television. We'll have a podcast running on WRFU 104.5 radio, and we continue to kind of promote it through our social media channels as well. It airs on YouTube, so it is searchable. I also want to mention our Artists of the Corridor exhibit that went up on display last week, and this is called Hard to Place, a collection of artwork by Natalie Pavoni. We had a opening reception just this past week, and on March 22nd, we will also have an artist talk at the Urbana Free Library. The next Artists of the Corridor exhibition will actually be a staff show, so it will feature work from the Urbana Free Library and City of Urbana staff, and it will stay up through Boneyard 2019. In place of a traditional reception and artist talk, we're going to be doing a showcase in conjunction with Boneyard. So those that are on our staff but may not be visual artists, but are musicians or DJs or dancers or performers will actually get to showcase their talents as well as part of that reception. So please look out for more information about that as Boneyard draws near.
Do you know what date that is yet?
We have not set a date, but it's likely the Friday of Boneyard.
Okay.
Yeah.
When is
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. It's in my report. Don't you worry. Art in the Square, just to talk about this first, is our regular concerts at the Farmers Market, of course, every second Saturday of the month. This past Saturday, we featured Melvin Knight, who's a neo-soul singer, at the Farmers Market. I can attest that it was probably the most soulful the Farmers Market has ever been. A wonderful performance and really well received by the folks of the Farmers Market. Melvin Knight is inspired by the sounds of the 60s. He's an R&B and soul singer from Champaign-Urbana and is backed by Elijah Harris, Kurt Shelby, and James Russell Sims. Our next concert is kind of on an off week. It's technically the third week of March, and it's going to be on March 16th in conjunction with some of our St. Patrick's Day celebration. We'll have Portmore, it's a traditional Irish music band, playing on the 16th at the Market in the Square. And then following that, on April 13th, our last one of the indoor farmers market features Hobnob String Band. All of these are, of course, at 10 a.m. at the indoor farmers market. And believe it or not, that will bring us to the outdoor market series. So at your next Arts Commission meeting, I will have a schedule of those to share with you as well. Here's a little bit about Portmore and the Hobnob String Band. Next, I just want to comment on Young Artist Studio, which continues to be a pretty robust program of the arts program. This is our collaboration with the Urbana Free Library to offer free art lessons to youth, largely on average the age of 5. Give and take. The last one that we had was a color collage on January 27th, with Elizabeth Simpson. And our February 3rd workshop featured impulsive art making with Mark Anthony Macon. I think to date this may have been one of our most successful Young Artist Studios, and it was incredibly non-traditional. So if any of you came or heard much about it, Mark gave a wonderful talk at the beginning of it, sharing what for him is the beauty of Young Artist Studio, which is being able to share a lesson that only that artist could teach. And the lesson that he wanted to teach was to not overthink art, to not be concerned with what people think about what you're making, but to actually ride out impulse, to make for the sake of making, and to not worry. And he gave them lots of wonderful directions, such as, actually, maybe quantity over quality in this moment. Maybe don't worry. Maybe make bad art. And I challenge you to make the most art you could possibly make in 40 minutes. And they had unfettered access to every piece of crafting device that we could come up with from the Urbana Free Library's arts materials collection. So kids were doing pour painting with acrylic paint and and throwing, markers and mixed media and collage and produced. We actually ended up laying out a bunch of different sheets on the floor as drying racks, and they were just making piece after piece after piece, and we had about 50 kids attend.
Wow.
So it was a wild 40 minutes, and the youth expressed wanting to have a Young Artist Studio exhibit at some point. So we've started to collect pieces, give the youth the option to submit their piece for inclusion into an upcoming exhibition. And a lot of the youth, ironically, I think largely because it was quantity over quality, you don't have a lot of time to form attachment with the piece you just made, they all wanted their pieces in the show. So we have a lot of pieces for an upcoming show, which is really exciting from this particular one, but we're going to wait and kind of collect. It's worth noting that I'm also expecting quite a number of different grant applications, but one that might also help support the creation of another gallery space in the library for the Teen Open Lab that could also showcase things like Young Artist Studio works, considering they're made in the same room. And regardless of a grant, that's a really interesting proposition and project, so we hope to see things like that be opportunities for further showcasing. Just to mention our next one, this is coming up on March 17th. Finger knitting is going to be the topic of the day, and we're going to do some finger knitted snakes with local knitter Ashley Price. I want to just quickly mention that conversations continue about the sculptures and working on a guide, as well as some spring opportunities for the sculptures to be activated through collaborations with our U of I dance department and local dance studios, doing some site-specific performances, as well as looking at how races will be incorporated into the marathon. And just to share those pictures again. And then just to give you a quick update, we are next to being able to publicly say what our name is going to be for the Downtown Events Series, but we're continually working on that. This group of folks from 40 North, Urbana Arts and Culture, and the Urbana Business Association Park District have continued to meet regularly. We've gotten a lot accomplished, and very soon we'll have marketing and other things to share at an upcoming meeting about the Summer Downtown Events Series. As I've shared before, what we've determined is that this will be a summer series that will activate the downtown, centered on Main Street between Race and Broadway, but extending beyond Main Street and really incorporating a lot of local businesses and hopefully encouraging widespread participation every fourth Saturday of the month between 5 and 8 p.m. And our hope is to also do a movie screening following each of these. So that means the event would end, the concerts would end at 8 o'clock, and our hope is by 8:30 there'd be an outdoor film screening in Urbana every fourth Saturday of the month. So more information on that soon, but really looking forward to that series as well. Did I skip Boneyard? Oh, there it is. Well, to give you your social media marketing report first, largely we've seen a lot of the same trends. They correspond directly with usage. I tend to post more on Facebook and Instagram and tend to see less activity on Twitter, and I post less on Twitter personally. So I try to make a note to post there for the arts program, but just in terms of like sharing pictures and things, Instagram and Facebook are used a little bit more often. So we have seen an increase in those. We've finally broken through 1,000 followers on Instagram this past month, so that was a nice win for social media marketing. But otherwise, they kind of hover around the same parts. So if you want to, support the arts program's reach in this way, one thing you can do as a commissioner or as a listener is to invite people to like the Public Arts Programs page. Currently, all of the pages for Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook are still under the name Urbana Public Arts, and soon I will be changing the names on all of those to reflect Arts and Culture Program. But for now, those are where they remain, and we encourage you to take some time to invite people to like them too. Just to make mention of Urbana, or the Urbana side of Boneyard Arts Festival, again, I'm a representative on the committee. So on behalf of the Arts and Culture Program, I participate in the Boneyard Arts Festival Planning Committee for the Urbana side of Boneyard. And we, in the history of 40 North's work with Boneyard, there was a Urbana, Campus, and Champaign committees. Currently, there's not a campus committee, so we really try to also take the Urbana side of campus too. But what we do primarily as a planning committee is we really work to identify artists as well as venues, as many as we possibly can, for performances, showcasing, exhibits of any kind. So if you want to help with that effort too, one thing that you can do is let us know if you know of a venue. What we do is we actually make a giant list of all the venues we could possibly imagine, businesses, any place in Urbana, and we divvy those up and we go and make personal contacts, so members of the committee. So that's part of the work that I'll be doing and did last year. And the committee also does a lot to kind of prep the downtown for Boneyard. So we kind of put up Bone Garland and do things that kind of give the, put out the sidewalk signs and other things that allow people to know that Boneyard is that weekend. So that'll be another opportunity for commissioners if you want to support the Boneyard Arts Festival activities. That's one thing that we'll need volunteers for, is people to put out and assist with some of those things. Just kind of, we have some little decor that we put out, and then we put out the sidewalk signs. And it's usually just a morning. I think it's usually the Thursday morning before the weekend. We typically do that, Thursday or Friday morning. So that's just something that we may ask for your support with. Other than that, I want to just mention that traditionally the arts program has offered something called Urbana Celebrates the Boneyard. And it's typically held in Boneyard Creek Crossing as a celebration of Boneyard Arts Festival. It's really designed to be an all-ages event that has music, usually tables with arts activities happening. We've had like puppetry and face painting and just a wide variety of activities. Last year we had dance music therapy doing some DJing for us for about, I think, almost 3 hours out at that event. And that was really wonderful. I think having DJs was a really great opportunity to kind of bring people in. And then we still had some of those live performances too. So I'll be giving you more information about what kinds of programming we will have. The arts program beyond that, last year had quite a lot of things going on. We had a Friday night exhibition opening for our Artists of the Corridor, a Saturday morning Art in the Market concert in conjunction with Boneyard, and the afternoon 4-hour-long event. So we had quite a lot going on. This year, Boneyard is falling on April 4th through 7th, so that's actually the first weekend of the month instead of the second. And what that means for us is it's not going to line up with an Art at the Market, which is actually sort of a good thing.
Yeah.
So we'll have that afternoon event most likely, and I'll be asking for your support with that too. That's a wonderful event to volunteer at if you'd like to volunteer for the program. Just to have our commissioners out at more of the events that we do would really feel wonderful. And I'd love to talk with you about the events that are of interest to you. And to really just have you there and talking to artists and getting to know, the artists that we work with so regularly, I think would be really great. So do let me know if those things interest you. Lastly, I just want to mention that there were also a number of outreach efforts this past month that are notable. One that I wanted to just elaborate on a little bit was the University of Illinois Grant-a-thon. So this is sponsored through the University of Illinois School of Social Work, and it is beyond social work students. It's really an invitation for students at the University of Illinois to think about grant writing and to know about local opportunities. So I have now twice, last year and this year, been a part of a panel as part of that Grant-a-thon that has featured Mike Driscoll from the Mental Health Foundation and myself and representatives of the Community Foundation. And each of us speak about those 3 grant opportunities. And learning about the arts and culture grants are really exciting for a lot of students, especially students who are trying to think about how the arts can be used as a vehicle for other kinds of awareness raising or social service efforts. So I participated in that again on behalf of the Arts and Culture Program, and I've always found that to be a really wonderful opportunity for students. So I wanted to make sure you were aware that that was another outreach that had happened in the past month, as well as I was able to present to about 30 staff members from the Office of Inclusion and Intercultural Relations, which includes all of the cultural centers and LGBT and Women's Center on the campus. And that was a great opportunity because they hadn't yet heard that we'd become the Urbana Arts and Culture Program, and we were able to talk together about some opportunities for collaboration between our units. So I presented to them a general presentation about the Arts and Culture Program, a lot of the things that we offer, and then we got to talk a little bit. And we have a number of groups there that have in the past applied for arts grants, and so we talked a bit about arts grants at that as well. But I wanted to make mention of those 2 things. Lastly, we're always looking for new volunteers, and I encourage you to also let any folks that you know working in the arts, to come and talk to us further about the arts program. And I continue to meet with the School of Art and Design and the Department of Theater about building a practicum course that would place students in an opportunity to learn through working with the arts program. So what we're trying to arrange is some level of class credit for working with the Urbana Arts and Culture Program for a short stint, usually a semester's worth of time. But I'll hopefully have some updates as that continues to kind of come together. And that is largely it, so thank you. I would like to take any questions you have.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm wondering how, I don't know if this would be better at the planning meeting later, but I love that we're trying to collaborate with the campus community, but I wonder if we need to think about having the grants here be considered sort of like a funding source for already established groups on campus. We sort of talked about seed money versus continuing money, which would work for sort of any discussion about projects or grants, but because the university is big and well established, it could look a certain way to people applying, or it could sort of get assumed by campus groups that this money would be involved, rather than turning inward on itself or developing its own long-term plans, I guess, for how to fund programming. The thing that comes to mind, I didn't look at who won for this last year, but the hip hop camp on campus, which is really great. But I wonder, how that would look long term. That's sort of the only example I can think of.
Yeah.
A specific one, but I don't know how you or how we think about that with campus.
Yeah, and I mean, it's worth noting that campus isn't the only organizational representatives that have some of those like higher budgets potentially. And then things like our campus cultural centers typically don't have large programming budgets. So we get into, certainly we could have a really good conversation about that, I think, yeah. And I think it's worth asking, you know, what are the long-term goals for this commission and the kinds of work that we do? I've gotten a lot of questions at arts grant workshops about, you know, what do we want to fund, and I keep going back to the program goals that we have, and they really are pretty robust because they ask for certain things like, you know, we can have the question of like, do you have to be living in Urbana to apply for an arts grant? And the answer is actually no, but your events have to take place in Urbana.
Right.
And because of the role of the program goals, which I will encourage us all to emphasize when we're evaluating, you know, we ask for like how well does this project bring together local artists, and how well does it bring together artists and connect them with things like local organizations, local businesses. I don't think this is a good project to fund, for instance, like bringing a speaker to campus or bringing a speaker to even like downtown Urbana from out of town unless that person is interfacing with something that is very local and being invited to collaborate with our local businesses and artists as well. That's a personal opinion in terms of how I read the program goals.
No, I would agree.
And so it really is designed to like celebrate Urbana's history and Urbana's present in terms of the businesses and organizations and artists that are here. But, you know, we asked the question of like, what's your annual operating budget and what are the monies that you're putting aside for this grant? And those are some things that come up in the grant process when we're, you know, kind of going over those too. Mm-hmm.
I did have a question. I wondered how the Urbana Poet Laureate process was going.
Yeah. Well, to date, I have, you know, I don't receive a lot of applications in advance. I mean, from my observation, none of the public arts coordinators receive them really well in advance.
No.
Like 90% of applications come in the day they're due. So I've received a couple applications, a handful for Poet Laureate, but I expect to receive a number more. And that jury is comprised of different people. So that's a different kind of jury where I've put together a collection of folks who have some areas of expertise in particularly creative writing and spoken word, and then arts events. Mm-hmm. But in terms of how it's going, I'm just awaiting applications.
Have you gotten inquiries about it?
Oh, yes, many. Uh-huh.
Oh, that's great. So,
Yeah.
Are you able to disclose who's on the jury for that?
We typically don't disclose who's on these juries, yeah.
Okay.
But I will say that the jury is comprised of arts administrators, like I said, and then creative writing and spoken word professionals in town. This is the time of year when I am just inundated with
Right.
questions, calls. I mean, my phone was off the hook today, just constantly dealing with calls. So there's a lot of interest in our grant program, and there's a lot of people that get to about this week and are like, oh, yeah, I really want to submit an arts grant. So it's usually a really busy time. What's going to likely happen is an extension of the deadline till Monday morning, and then me just combing all of the applications and making sure they're well organized to be sent out to juries on Monday and Tuesday. Mm-hmm.
I had a sort of related question. So I know we can't say who's on the juries, but how do you, I guess, because it's been going on for a long time, are there a lot of repeats, or how do you sort of cycle through people?
There aren't a lot of repeats. I think there are people who've been asked to be on it a couple different times, and then typically we have commissioners on it, so you'll be getting an email from me because I have typically had a commissioner on each jury. And I'm kind of comprising the juries now and then thinking about your areas of expertise to ask you to maybe fill in some gaps that might be there. But the juries, we take a lot into consideration. So we take into consideration diversity of creative sector, making sure that on each jury, especially for our general grants, now this is different for Poet Laureate for obvious reasons, but for the general grant program, that we have jurors that have areas of expertise in visual arts, performing arts, arts administration, different areas. We want to have people in arts administration on there too, because we want people that are familiar with what it takes to pull off an event, or what it takes to pull off, major special events, that kind of thing. We take into consideration racial and ethnic diversity, gender diversity, basically connection to different segments of the community. And it's only usually about 5 to 6 people on each jury. So with all those things in mind, we try to put a jury together that is pretty reflective of the diversity of our art scene.
I would just say, too, if you have not, as a commissioner, been on the jury before, I would encourage you to do it, because it's really actually fun. I mean, it's work, but it's also a lot of fun. So if you have not done it before, please speak up and volunteer.
Well, and I have had the privilege of seeing countless at this moment drafts of grant applications, and you've got some really exciting things coming.
It's great. Well, I know last year was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
I would, I would volunteer for a jury.
That's so good. Very good, yeah. And of course, as is the case for every single juror, we ask you to, I'll try to place you on something that is not related to any category that you might have any relationship to, right? So if you are in any way involved in a project that could benefit, you can't be on that jury. And then if you're not aware and it comes up in the jury meeting, or when I send you applications, you can recuse yourself, and then we'll replace you with a different person. But yeah, I need at least 3 people from the commission to volunteer this year. So that's really exciting that you're interested. Do I have other people that are particularly interested?
I'm not trying to shirk my duties here, but I think we'll have a little baby.
I don't think
I don't think the timing's so good for me
I
this
know,
year.
the timing's not so good for you. And you did it last year.
Yeah, I've done it a few times.
Yeah.
It is a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And arts in the schools, that one in particular being, in our schools, I think about our commissioner, Sarah, but I, in general, want to put people who work in the schools on that one. And that's so that one in Poet Laureate's a little bit different, because we like to have people who have those areas of expertise.
I've been a jury for both arts in the schools and the public arts program, but I'll do it, or grants program, but I'll do it again.
Yay! And you brought snacks.
Me?
You were like the
last
best
time I
juror
did, I
ever.
did, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I love snacks.
Well, that's wonderful. Are there any other questions regarding a lot of the programs? We've had quite a lot going on. But any questions about any of the pieces that I spoke about today?
I don't want to turn the mic for this. I wonder, is there like a website with like information, because I know a lot of it is on social media, but like I'm personally not really on social media.
Yeah. So I will say that it is can be challenging to keep the website up to date, especially when we have like changes. So for instance, last month I told you that the February 13th event that's happening in 2 days would be, or tomorrow, excuse me, would be at Arcadia. And then Arcadia has decided to eventually close its doors, and so they decided not to have the event. I moved it to 25 o'clock Brewing Company. So these kinds of things can just make updating a website with that frequency a little difficult. But yes, I have kind of resisted to date putting up all of like the little events that we do as different pages on our social media accounts. Of course, on our website, but we do have all of the grant information up there, and then we have a rundown of the different events that we do. With what I would like to do is have a calendar that has everything on it, and so we've been in conversations about that here at the city to come up with a solution, because we do have a city calendar. If the arts program kind of really put all of the events that we're doing on there, it would be largely the arts calendar. So we're trying to decide what kind of calendar we ought to produce. But yes, that is an ongoing question, and I'd love your perspectives on what you'd like to see, and I can take that, of course, back to our staff and see what's possible.
Have you made use of the website and found that certain things you wanted to be there weren't there, or?
You mean the City of Urbana
Yeah.
website?
Yeah. The arts program is also just a tiny bit buried in the website.
Yes.
So I have requested that it be a little less buried, but the thing that I think could happen sooner than later is that we had as you know, a closing of the Civic Center. The Civic Center, Market at the Square, and the Public Arts Program are under a category under residents called Things to Do, See, and Visit. And I think at this point, if it's just me and the market, we can just be a page, like we can have our own pages. So that's sort of what I'm advocating for in this moment. It's just one less step, and there's not that much different content there. Mm-hmm.
I had a tiny question. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, going off kind of what was said earlier, I was just wondering like about the social media page, like or page in your presentation.
Mhm.
I either want to see like more,
Mhm.
or like I don't know, maybe it's not worth like just talking about or increasing in followers. Like I want to see like what kind of posts are getting engaged with. You know,
Oh, that's
what
great.
kind of like what posts are getting a lot of likes. Are you like paying for promotions and stuff?
Yes.
Um,
It might be valuable to have that as a intentional, specific presentation one day,
yeah,
because
maybe
that's a
like,
lot of information to pull together.
Maybe like a separate like quarterly or yearly thing.
Yeah, I could do that too and remove it for now and make it more intentional. Because we do boost posts, and it's been interesting to see what things get the most likes.
Right.
Sometimes it's not at all what I would expect
Right.
would get the most likes. Yeah. So one effort I've made is, we have the Art Now program that airs on YouTube. And on occasion, we've noticed that has not had as many views as one would like it to have. So that's why I've also tried to work with just making little efforts to kind of make it bigger. So to make it into a podcast that then links back to the full episode, or make it into work with Smile Politely to do a print version that kind of draws further upon the interview with the artists to their writers interviewing the artists directly, separately, and then linking back to the full story. So these kinds of things that might encourage more viewership, but that's definitely one too, where it's like that I would love to see more likes on that.
Yeah.
Mhm. Any other questions?
Okay, then I guess we might as well move ahead to talking about the grant, Urbana Arts Grants Tier 3 timeline and jury process.
Yes. So I have scheduled our special meeting for 5 p.m. on February 26th. It will likely be in here. And I want to just emphasize that is an important meeting to attend. It's not the most important meeting to attend, because the most important meeting to attend is your March 12th meeting, because that is when you are casting your final votes, as well as approving the jury selections for tiers 1 and 2, Arts in the Schools and Poet Laureate. And effectively on March 12th, anyone watching or attending our meeting should know whether they're getting a grant or not, as that will be really when all of the decisions are made. Just to recap, the intention of the February 26th meeting is to give the Tier 3 applicants their opportunity to give you an in-person presentation of their grant proposal. Because these are our largest grants, between $5,000 and $10,000, the organizations that are coming are putting on events of a much larger scale. We're talking, since it funds up to 30% of the total grant monies, we're talking about events that costs, I believe, over nearly $17,000 or more to put on. And so those groups will be coming and giving an in-person presentation. I don't imagine it to be wholly unlike your regular grant reports. They're just giving a proposal of that nature. You have an opportunity there to ask them questions, and that is really what that is intended for. You will have already received their arts grant applications, because I'm going to forward them on to you. My plan right now is to put them in a password, probably cloud, like maybe a Google Drive folder, that you'll have a specific password to get into that has their grant submittals, and you'll be able to look over those things as well as score them at that meeting. And then I collect those scores, and then we will come with a proposal, staff will, based on your scores. You hear the presentations, you can amend your scores at that time, and then you will come and I will be able to kind of put together a proposal for your March 12th meeting based on what you scored and what those tallies would be. So it's my responsibility then to kind of pull those things together, show you where you ranked them, and show you based on your what your discussions were, what we think you came to as a conclusion, and then we get to discuss that again on March 12th and then take a final vote. Does that make sense? So one other thing of note is we did say that at that February 26th meeting, you can ask questions, and it might be possible that the presenter does not have an answer to your question at that exact moment. So they have a deadline, and now I'm trying to remember exactly the date, but you have all of that in the old notes, and I'll send them out again. But they have, I believe, until the first week of March, potentially then at the end of that week, to give you a response to any question that they could not answer in that moment. So let's say you wanted more detailed information about their budget, or you had a question about something that they proposed doing and they weren't sure how to answer. They have a time to get us a written response, and when they send those to me, I send them directly out to all of you as a commission. And that can inform then your scoring. Does that make sense? Okay. I also wanted to note one other thing. We did take time to consult with the city's attorney. It came up at the last meeting that there was a question about the Freedom of Information Act requests and our jury score sheets. So I just wanted to make clear some of the information that we got. So we did consult with the city attorney staff, and the office staff intends to keep preliminary scorings from commission members confidential. Individual commission member scoring sheets constitute preliminary notes and recommendations. The opinions expressed therein contribute directly to the formation of the Arts and Culture Commission's actions to award funding. So in other words, they are almost draft-like, and drafts are usually not FOIA-able in that sense. The scoring information should be maintained on a confidential basis. So that said, if commission members discuss their preliminary recommendations with one another, publicly or privately, then those communications could be subject to FOIA. So you need to not be communicating with each other publicly or privately about your scores, because then they are public. Also, commission members are encouraged to ask your questions of applicants via the process laid out by staff, and avoid discussing your recommendations with one another until the final public meeting of the commission, where you will also vote on the grants award. Staff will have synthesized your individual preliminary scorings into a single recommendation, as I said, to the full body, which will serve as a starting point for the commission's discussion at the public meeting. So in other words, I will present what to date has been your scoring and all of the rankings that have kind of come out of that, and then you'll get to discuss it again. Again, you have an opportunity to change your mind and amend, but that is where the discussion ought to take place, here in our forum of the chambers. When you're not here, you're not to discuss them. If you do, they would be subject to FOIA. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. And it's a thing that protects also the transparency of this process. So that's the plan. I suspect we will learn some things through the shifts of the grant program this year. I already feel like I am a little bit. One of the things that I've noticed is a lot of people questioning whether they should apply, if they're working with schools, questioning whether they should apply for Arts in the Schools or a Tier 1 grant. There is a lot more money being offered through our Tier 1 grant than Arts in the Schools. It's a rather small award. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do is see what we get, and this is what we do every year, actually. We see what we get. We make sure, based on eligibility, that each one is in the category it truly belongs in. We contact them and give them an opportunity to revise and change categories, and we will make sure that everyone has the most amount of opportunity. So if somebody applies for Arts in the Schools, but technically they can also be considered for Tier 1, we'll make that adjustment. My hope is probably what I'm seeing as sort of the light at the end of the tunnel is probably next year. My proposal will sound something more like our application for arts in the schools won't be wholly separate, but will be, you will indicate if you meet the eligibility for arts in the schools on your Tier 1 application, and then it'll be a check mark that says, I would like to be considered for the Arts in the Schools award, because it's effectively an award. It's a pretty small amount of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking, and I think also that it'll probably function almost in that way, this grant cycle, but we'll see what we get. Yeah. Any questions about that?
I have a question.
Yeah.
There was some talk about getting to see the scoring sheets.
Yes,
Before
I
we-
gave them out at the last meeting. They are basically grading on 3 criteria, and it's project feasibility, community integration,
Oh, yeah, I
and
remember.
artistic quality.
Got it.
And the only amendment I'm going to make to them is it already has this on there, but it has kind of a listing of the program goals as they fit those things. So to invite you to measure, for instance, project feasibility as a scoring of what does the budget look like? Is it reasonable? Does it look fleshed out? And also, if this group has applied in the past, how have they financially performed? These kinds of questions. So what I'm going to do is take that scoring sheet that you saw, and I'm just going to give you more space to work in, but the information's going to largely stay the same. I think it should work fine. I mean, when I went back and was trying to think if there's anything that really isn't incorporated into there, it was really just kind of maybe fleshing out those points. And if we flesh them out, there might be an opportunity, for instance, for you to think of, like, am I giving them a score of, I think it's 1 to 5, so am I giving them like a 5 on all of these subcategories under the 1, and then averaging that number, and that's your ranking for project feasibility or for community integration, et cetera. Does that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions? No conflicts for the February 26th meeting? Okay, great. And then, of course, again, March 12th is the most important. If for any reason conflict comes up, it's okay. It would be wonderful to have your scoring sheets and for you to take the time to watch that meeting. So to really take the time to watch the February 26th meeting. If when you watch it, and do so promptly, so if you are stuck in work or wherever you are, but can go home later that evening and watch our televised meeting, do so, and then send us, if you do have them, any questions you would have asked that we could pass along to the grantees. And I think that should suffice. The March 12th meeting is most important. I have been working to schedule the sneak peek. So just as a heads up, I mentioned the sneak peek before. That is our celebration of the grantees. So those that are awarded are celebrated in a public event. It's wonderful to have the whole commission at that event. For you to be able to meet and congratulate people that got awards, for them to kind of put a face to the commission itself.
What date is it again?
I have not confirmed it.
Oh, okay.
But it's usually
do you know
within
where
the
it's going to be?
beginning of April. Yeah, we're looking at, we're likely to have it at Blackbird
Okay.
in Urbana. And so we have a live band, and then there's a kind of visual slideshow of all the grantees that were awarded, and they have an opportunity to come up and share just like a 2 to 3 sentences about their project and what they're excited about. And it's really more of a networking opportunity and a celebration.
It's fun. You should come.
It's very fun. Thank you.
I think that's it.
I think that's it. My understanding about the grantees that were scheduled for today, just of note, about 3 of those awards are of grant presentations were largely from some of the same people that had some conflicts, and then we had a need to, due to a medical issue, the library had to switch, and then the last one had a problem. They sent a video, and I had a problem with the link. So they're all moving to March. So that's why you don't have grant presentations today, even though I thought we were going to have the longest list of grant presentations we've had in a while, which means because I have told everyone I've suspended April presentations in favor of doing our strategic planning at that date. Not only is that an important meeting to attend, but we may have a bunch of presentations at the May meeting, so, I mean, the March meeting, so just expect the March meeting is going to probably be long, because you're approving grants, which shouldn't take too long, but it'll be a presentation. Then we're doing the review of your final vote for these others. Then you're hearing grant reports. So there's going to be a list of things that evening. And I would expect similarly kind of a long meeting for April and May, just for the nature of these grant presentations coming up. It's the end of the year, so we get a lot of people suddenly wrapping up from the past cycle as well.
Okay.
It's a busy
Anybody have any
time.
announcements? Okay, I'm going to move that we adjourn. Can I have a second?
Second.
We're done. Thank you.